Hey, what's going on, guys? For today's Gunpla review video, we're going to be taking a look at the Tallgeese 3. This is, of course, the original HG Tallgeese 3, going all the way back to 1998 from the HG Endless Waltz lineup there. This kit, I believe, has parts to make both the Tallgeese 1 and Tallgeese 2 in here as well, which is pretty interesting considering that this is a smaller box. I mean, it's like typical like high-grade depth and height, but it's not as wide as your standard HG box. So including extra additional parts in there makes me think that this is not going to be a very parts heavy kit, of course, but it's an older HG kit from the 90s, so kind of what do you expect? But I'm always a big fan of the Tallgeese design, so looking forward to taking a look back at this classic kit. Let's go ahead and get started. Yeah, so it's weird that the box is not as wide as the standard box size, but it was a weird time back then. Some cool artwork here on the front with the Tallgeese 3, and you can see Zex down there at the bottom. You notice up here at the top we have the $14.99 price tag on here from Video Games Etc., which is actually a video game store from my hometown, so it's really cool. Actually, Riley, who hooked me up with these kits, is actually from the same area as me, so this is actually a local video game store that I used to go to all the time as well. But this one, because this is the Japanese version of the release, maybe that's why it's in the smaller size box. Maybe the Japanese versions were all this size. Because of that, this one does have the price tag over here on the barcode in Japanese yen, MSRP of 800 yen, so like $6-7. Very affordable. Here, while we're here, we can take a look, just showing some of the other HGs from the lineup that were available. On the end of the box, you can see this is 02 in the lineup. So actually, you know, at the time there was 01 and 02, obviously, but we had like kind of the full lineup was on display there. You could see all the other releases that were going to be available. And then on the bottom of the box here, images of what the built and painted kit's going to look like there as the Tallgeese 3. Some text here in Japanese. Over here, some more images of kind of an action pose there. And here you can see as the Tallgeese 1 or Tallgeese 2. So it's essentially just like a couple of parts that are different. Obviously, the color is going to need to be painted for whichever color, whichever version you want to go with. And of course, there on the box, you can see the release year of 1998 as well for this one. Let's go ahead and pop it open. And everything is white except for the stickers. So it is going to be a very, very white kit, unfortunately, because that's harder to show on camera, unfortunately. I'll have to make sure I can light this one in a way that you guys can see what's going on. But because this is the Japanese release, we don't have the additional like English version of the instructions. We only have the one set of instructions here for this with a really nice image of the painted kit here on the front. On the back side, we're going to have some really nice reference images here if you opt to paint this as or model it and paint it as the Tallgeese 1 or the Tallgeese 2. So you have reference images for that as well, which is pretty cool. The color guide is down here at the bottom, and most of the colors I think would be like this color guide would apply to kind of all three versions, because the blue, whether you're using the blue for the Tallgeese 2 or the Tallgeese 3, is going to be using the same blue. The yellow is just going to be like straight yellow. I guess it actually has it as gold. For the yellow, it's going to be on here, which is be that bit there, or on like the Tallgeese 1. Anyway, so kind of interesting that that's gold and not yellow. But on the inside of here, like we saw with the Wing Zero Custom, we have this like triple page fold out here with a bunch of images of the model kit and also images from the anime, talking about like the story and background here of Gundam Wings. So that's all really cool. Down here at the bottom, more about just strictly the model kit, images and the text. So there's all that, really cool. We've got the parts list over here, and then all the construction here in black and white. It's basically these couple of pages there at the start, and that's pretty much it. So obviously the construction is going to be pretty simple here. It seems like at least a third of the construction is just dedicated to showing how to build the alternate versions if you prefer to build either the 1 or 2. And so on that note, here we do also have the sticker sheet, which is going to have stickers kind of for all three versions. So depending on which version you're going to build, you may not actually use all of these, but you can see we've got some here in gold, blue, and then a couple of red ones there as well. And getting into the runners here, the only runner that is not in white is this polycap runner here, PC15, for a couple of gray polycaps. Otherwise, we also have this polycap runner here, PC110, which is all in white. We've got a couple of really small little runners here for some head parts. These are for the Tallgeese 2 head parts. So there's the two like main parts, and then the part here for the crest on these separate little runners there. Runners A1 and A2 here feature parts for the feet, body, Dobergun parts there, some thruster bits. You can see some parts there for the backpack and hip section there, it looks like, for the head as well. They're on runner A1, A2. B1, B2, kind of more of the same here. There's a shield part, skirt parts, torso parts, head parts there. Runner B2 has parts for the arms, legs, a few other little bits on there. And then lastly, runner C is going to be a larger full-size runner here, which looks to be like parts mostly for the Tallgeese 3 specifically. You can see weapons parts and some more parts there for the Tallgeese 3, including the heat whip there. So some cool bits. Let's go ahead and get this built up and we'll see how it looks. All right, guys, and here is the kit all built up. Very white, going to be blindingly white. And basically everything that you can see on there, which is not white, is going to be a sticker on this kit. So because of that, I did go ahead and just do a little bit of panel lining on this just to make it easier for you guys to see here on video, just because the kit is, 99% white essentially. And like we saw with the Wing Gundam, I mean, there's definitely some pros and cons here. Proportionally, I think overall it doesn't look too bad. Maybe the head's like a little bit big on there, I feel like. But other than that, I mean, generally, like again, at a glance, it looks pretty good. You got some nice detail on there. It is going to have stuff like the polycap hands and a ton of seam lines on there. So there's definitely a lot of work cut out for you if you wanted to really make this look its best. But with this set, we do have the parts to make this as either the Tallgeese 1, 2, or 3, which is a kind of added bonus of this. But I feel like most people are going to be getting this in order to turn it into the Tallgeese 3, of course. So it's certainly going to be a much cheaper option in 1/44 scale compared to the real grade P Bandai kit. But I think you're definitely going to probably enjoy the real grade a lot more. But let's go ahead and check this one out here in some more detail. All right, so for option parts, even though we saw with the Wing Zero Custom, it did have option parts for the hands. Aside from the weapon holding hands, we had closed fists and open hands, but this one only comes with these weapon holding hands. And I think the reason for that is because I believe that this is actually not so much a case where it's the Tallgeese 3 kit that comes with parts for the Tallgeese 1 and Tallgeese 2. It's more so that there was already Tallgeese 1 and 2 kits, or I'm not sure if that was a combined kit or not, but basically it was that kit with the parts for the Tallgeese 3. So this is actually kind of like the oldest of the kits, being based on like the TV series kit, and then they made this Endless Waltz version of the Tallgeese 3 based on the TV series version of that kit. So it's actually older and therefore uses the older polycap runner, which only gives you those polycap hands for the weapon holding hands only, unfortunately, in this case. So our main accessories are of course going to be here on the kit. We've got the big shield over here on this side. Again, it's a big blue sticker there, red stickers up there and up there. Some pretty nice detail around here. You do have the handles for the beam sabers molded into the backside of the shield. Those aren't actually removable or functional. They're just there just for the detail. And then you have this little bit of the heat whip right here. You're going to actually remove that and replace it with this part here if you want to actually have that in use. Very thin, just a single piece here for that, but some nice detail on it. Here, as you can see, obviously not going to have any articulation or anything. It's just going to be molded in this one particular shape. So overall, not too bad looking. If we go around here onto the other side, of course, we have the massive beam cannon here. Again, doesn't really do anything. You can, like the connection between the beam cannon and the shoulder, there's a little bit of articulation there. This is just going to fit into the hand. And one issue that I always have with every single version of the Tallgeese, I think except maybe like the real grade handled it pretty well, but the issue always comes down to the fact of actually using, whether it be the beam cannon or the Dober gun in the case of the Tallgeese 1 or 2. It's kind of difficult to manage actually posing it to like extend the arm straight or to make it look like it's actually like firing. It's always looks a little bit goofy, and this case is not going to be any different, so it is going to be kind of tricky to actually make it look like it's firing it. But whether it's firing it or not, the details and everything on it, I mean, it does look pretty good. You kind of have to position these parts in a way so that they're not like bent like that, or they are going to be a bit bowed, so you kind of have to work with that. But I mean, the parts do look pretty good. We do also have our beam saber, which, like I said, the ones in the back of the shield aren't actually functional. It's just a separate one here, and we do only have just the one, even though it should technically have two. But again, this is just going to be a single white piece, so getting out some paint or Gundam marker or whatever to color in that blade, gonna definitely be a good idea. And that's it for all of our accessories here for the Tallgeese 3, which is what we're gonna be taking a look at here for today's video. But of course, we will briefly take a look at the parts here for either the Tallgeese 1 or 2. So here are our head options for that, the Tallgeese 1 head and the Tallgeese 2 head. And like with the Tallgeese 3 head, all three of these heads I think look a little bit, the proportions are not exactly quite right or ideal for these, I'm not sure, but anyway. You do also have the different torso part here. And this one, I think the only difference is just the fact that the new torso has more articulation. The design, I believe, is pretty much exactly the same. Here, the old torso doesn't have any articulation, whereas the new torso does have a bit of separation between the midsection and the top of the torso there, so you have that little bit of added articulation for the Tallgeese 3 that the 1 and 2 wouldn't have had. And then of course the shield and the double gun, we do have this big sticker for the gold eagle on the shield. Once again, the beam saber handles are molded into the back of there, but those aren't actually functional. You'd have to like cut and remove and modify those if you wanted to actually use them. And the double gun here like this. This one I'm not sure how well the kit's really going to be able to hold on to this, just because with the Tallgeese 3's beam cannon, the handle is situated off to the side, which is helpful. With this one, because the handle is like right on the bottom of it, that's one of the reasons why the double gun always kind of is a little bit of a pain. Of course, you're going to have seam lines down the middle of just about everything. But let's talk a little bit more about the stickers here for this. I mentioned these ones over here on the shield. Obviously, we have some here on the torso and on the head as well. Those blue ones there on the torso work pretty nicely. The ones up here on the head are a little bit more tricky. I almost kind of like the look of the head without these stickers, to be honest. You have a couple of blue ones that go on the mohawk. 3 gold stickers there for the crest on the head, 1 for the center, and then separate stickers for each side as well. You can kind of work the stickers in to kind of cover that pretty well, but again, I think probably just getting like a gold marker or even a gold Sharpie or something like that. Again, simple. If you're not going to paint the entire kit, there's better ways to make that crest look rather than using the stickers, but that's how it's going to look with them. And then you've got blue stickers here for the wraparound parts around the kind of like the side back of the head as well. And even with those, it's still not even close to being color accurate, as this part of the skirting armor is supposed to be blue as well. These thruster binders here at the back are also supposed to be almost entirely blue. So it's still going to be missing a lot of colors here. So the majority of the color scheme is white. So I mean, at a glance, it looks pretty close to the official colors. But if you are wanting this to be at least a little bit more color accurate, you will probably have to do a little bit of painting on those parts, which won't be too bad. So let's talk a little bit about our articulation here. I mentioned the articulation here in the torso, which is nice to have that, but the worry is because of this beam cannon, it's very heavy to this side, and I'm worried that for some posing, it's going to be kind of weighted down like that. That said, the shield is also pretty heavy, so it should help to kind of counterbalance it out a little bit. We might actually have more problems in the shoulders here, as you can see, more so than in the torso section, and we just don't have very much stability there. Aside from these heavy weapons hanging off the shoulders, these thruster binders here on the back are also connected to the back of the shoulder armor. I thought they were typically connected onto the back, but attached to the back of the shoulder armor apparently. So these are also going to add to the weight that you have there on the arms, meaning that you just have a lot of weight here on those arm joints, and they just don't really seem to be all that stable, unfortunately. So we'll see how that affects the posing options here in just a moment. These do have the nice gimmick built into them though, aside from just being able to move up and down. You can open these up and you've got the thrusters inside, so this little wing folds out, and then you can open these out. And they're not like the Master Grade or the RG, how these parts are like geared to open up kind of simultaneously. You kind of have to do everything manually, but it still makes for a pretty cool look once you have everything opened up like that with those sticking out. Only thing is that you can't actually rotate these. You should ideally be able to rotate them a little bit to be pointed out. I guess if you just bent the shoulders up like that, but again, the shoulders aren't really going to stay up very well, I feel like. So if you have both of these opened up like that, even let's say you don't even open them up all the way, it's going to be like a very narrow space in the center to have them not crashing into each other here without having like the shoulders tilted up there, like I'm saying. So it looks good. You might want to either glue or do something to kind of make sure that you can actually handle the weight of those, though that's going to be the only problem. Back around to the front though, the head does have some articulation up and down slightly here and a little bit side to side there as well. So you can work that pretty nicely. The skirting armor, what little we have here at the front and then here around the back, none of that moves. That's all fixed in place. The legs, as you might imagine, are just ball and socket joints there. So you're going to be limited as to how far the legs can spread out to the side, and then also how far you can bring the legs up to the front. Not very far there, unfortunately. We do have a double joint in the knee, but because of the design, you can't really bend it any farther than that, which is like barely 45 degrees, maybe I want to say. Not too much. And the ankle joint is also just going to be a very simple design here, not really giving you much articulation. Seam lines all the way down, again, kind of through everything, and completely flat underneath the feet too. No detail there, unfortunately. With this being, again, essentially the older model kit design from the TV series, it's not going to be quite as nice as the other Endless Waltz HG kits, unfortunately. Going back up here to the arms, I kind of skipped over that. The arm, the shoulder joint, obviously not going to swing forward and back at all. The shoulder armor and the arm can go up to the side to, again, about like 45 degrees, maybe slightly more than that. That's going to be kind of about it, but again, it's just going to be weighted down by the other equipment. You do have some rotation there at the top of the elbow joint, and the elbow joint itself going to give you a little bit more than 90 degrees, not too bad there. And the hand is just a ball joint, so ultimately articulation not really going to be the strong point as you may expect, but I think even aside from the articulation, our big problem might just be stability here. So let's try out some poses with this guy. And so as you can imagine, and as you're going to see here, you are going to have some difficulty posing this kit for a couple of reasons. Number one, and kind of majorly just because of the lack of articulation, particularly there in the hip section and the knees, not being able to raise the legs or bend the knees really all that much. Even if you get this up on an action base, typically that would allow you to do a little bit more kind of in terms of your posing options, but even still, you're going to be pretty limited. So the legs are going to be limited by the articulation. The arms are going to be limited just by the weight of everything that's going on there. So they're just without, doing anything to shore up the stability of the shoulder joints in particular. The weight issue is just going to be a problem for you. Also, if you have the binders or the backpack verniers, I should say, opened up there on the backpack, because they're going to be colliding with the Mega Cannon on the one side. If you have them opened up, it has to be like raised up high over the Mega Cannon. That's also going to be kind of a challenge. I mean, that will limit your options for how you might want to actually pose those. So there's certainly going to be some issues that you're going to have to work around in terms of just trying to pose the kit. That said, just proportionally, I think it does look pretty nice. Detail-wise, it's got a fair amount of detail on there, which also looks pretty nice. The only part of the proportions that I think I would really worry too much about is just kind of the head. Again, I think the head's maybe like slightly too large. That's probably like the hardest part to modify too, if you wanted to modify the proportions of it. But for a kit as old as it is, and again, this being based off of the Tallgeese 1 and 2 from the HG Wing TV series of kits, certainly not going to go into a kit like this expecting it to blow your mind by any means. But I think ultimately, how does it look? Overall, it looks, not bad. Definitely, if you wanted a 144 scale Tallgeese, the real grade is definitely going to be the way to go, whether you're getting just the real grade Tallgeese 1, or if you want to pick up, pay a little bit more for the premium Bandai version. I think there's a premium Bandai Tallgeese 2 and 3 available as far as I can remember. So that would be what I recommend, but if you can find this for MSRP, it's certainly very cheap too. And maybe you just want to use it for just some kit bashing material, just because it does come with the parts to make. It's basically just like the shield and the Dauber gun, and then the alternate head parts is really the only difference between the Tallgeese 1, 2, and 3 here. Everything else is just going to be the same, but I mean, if you want to just pick it up as some just kit bashing material, could be cool to kit bash some of these parts with something like the HG Leo, which we do have a nice new HG Leo kit, so that could certainly be an option if you can pick this kit up for cheap. That could work quite well. So anyway, that's it for this review, guys. Let me know what you think about the kit in the comment section below. If you want to check out some more kits for yourself, you can check the link in the video description to USA Gundam Store. And as always, guys, thank you so much for all of your support, leaving a like, making sure that you're subscribed. Really appreciate it. Up next, we're going to be taking a look at the HG Death Scythe Hell Custom from Endless Waltz. And that one should be quite interesting as well. So I'll see you guys then. Have a good day. Bye, guys.